let's just go ahead and jump into. We have 3 episodes of Andor to
Yeah,
talk about. So,
all
do you want
very,
to go
very well.
episode to episode, or do you want to just jump around and talk about what
No,
we enjoyed and talk about it holistically?
no, we can talk about it as a whole arc in and of itself. I'm not really like worried about going episode by episode. I think they did. I mentioned in my 3-minute review. I think that this is a very welcome return to this world and to this story, and a very welcome return back to mature Star Wars.
Yeah.
Which again,
Oh, yeah. Especially that
it
last episode. Hmm.
it's not fair to call this show Star Wars when it deals with very heavy themes like this. And I think the only real complaint that I actually had with this 3-episode arc is it is the weakest of the 3-episode arcs I think that Andor has actually done thus far. Even
Yeah.
if you look at the first season, like it objectively, even though it didn't release, I don't actually remember. Did it release in 3 episodes each week that
I
first
don't
season?
remember how the first season of Andor released, to be
It doesn't
honest.
matter. If you look at it though, it is technically like 3-episode arcs for everything. 3 episodes before Andor goes with Luthien in the beginning, 3 episodes of him robbing the Empire, 3 episodes of him escaping prison, and then I think it's actually like 2 episodes of like the big finale with his mom dying
Yeah, so
and him.
yeah. So I think it is. I don't know if it dropped in the 3 episodes, but I do remember that it was chunks of a story. It's very similar to what we're seeing now.
They were structured into what we're seeing, like something very similar to what we're
Yes.
seeing now. So that's why I'm saying, like, of all of the arcs that they have done within the show, not bad, very very good. There's a lot of character and a lot of great things to love within these episodes, but it is by far the weakest. There is really nothing for I think Cassian to really do here beyond show how he's like
For being called Andor, he is not in this 3 episodes all that much. He's really like barely on screen, and that was something
yeah.
I'm glad that I'm not the only one who had this as a note. Because I think my biggest like if I wanted to summarize it into not just like that, it is I think one of the biggest drawbacks to this 3 episode is they try to do too much. Don't get me wrong, I
Yeah.
really enjoyed what we saw, but you're following Mon Mothma, you're following Bix and the Grain Planet, you're following what's his name? I'm forgetting you're following Dedra,
Yeah.
and Cyril.
Yeah.
Um, and I actually really enjoy all of those aspects individually. You're watching Mon marry off her daughter. You're watching Dedra go through her own arc with Gormon and also meeting Cyril's mom. And
Correct.
you're following Andor and his theft of the TIE fighter and his eventual
The
capture and hostage situation. And you're following
Yes.
Bix on the Grain Planet, but you're following so many things that you're not really getting, I feel like, enough of any of those stories.
Well, yeah, and I actually wouldn't even say it's that. My biggest problem is I care about all of those stories except Cassian's. Cassian's is fine. He's
Yeah.
getting off this planet, which was originally this meeting point for him, and now it's been taken over by these random group of what did they say they were savages? What are they technically?
No, they're not savages from my and this is where again I agree with you. I fully agree with you that ironically enough, the title character's like arc is the lamest and like most like I don't care about this storyline.
Yeah.
I really like how it started. It's funny because I wrote a note in episode 1 where it's like, how does he know how to fly this TIE fighter? He's never like flown this before. And then immediately I'm proven wrong because he just fucks up and doesn't know how to actually fly
He
it.
doesn't.
And I really, really
No.
enjoyed that I immediately got proven wrong. Um,
Again,
but
it's not
from
bad.
my
It's just the weakest.
well, yeah, because from my understanding, they're also rebels question mark, but a different offshoot who's led by this person Maya, who like we don't
Yeah.
really get any like it. I don't know if we're gonna go back to it at all, and I think that's my biggest problem with it is there's no conclusion to their story because Cassian just leaves,
Yeah.
and you don't really care about any of them at all.
Yeah, I think I think that what they're trying to set up here, and this is something that we see a lot in Rogue One, and it's probably why they're addressing it now. And they kind of talk about it in the first season, and especially when you see Saul Guerrera again in the first season, there are different factions of this rebellion that they're forming.
It's a very disjointed rebellion in the early stages before
Correct.
the events. I mean, realistically, before the events of Rogue One, it's really just a bunch of people individually, groups fighting against the Empire until they come together with the magnum opus that is the Death Star plans being stolen and a common goal.
Right.
It really just starts off as people trying to protect their home worlds and their planets, which is very, from my understanding, that's the group of people that Cassian Andor like stumbles across. It's just
Yeah.
people who are trying to fight the rebellion, or fight for the rebellion, but really just for the protection of their own planet.
Sure.
But again, we don't really care. Like we they fight each other, and it's just there to keep Andor away from the main story. That's the only reason that plot at the time. And again, maybe we'll build upon this, and if we do, I'm more than happy to be proven wrong. But I agree it was the weakest plot point, because
I
then you jump to a story
yeah.
like Mons, and Mons having the whole thing with Tay and Luther and marrying off her daughter, and her having to deal with simultaneously the political drama of being a mainstay figure in the rebellion, while also having to deal with the fact that she's a mom to Lita and
Right.
marrying her off and dealing with that, which
I
I think
think
was just
that
an exceptional story.
I think that the story we're going to see throughout the season, it's not so much anymore the story of Cassian Andor, even though we're following his character. It's not going to be about him choosing to fight in this rebellion. It's not going to be him, because he already did that at the end of the season. Cassian's arc, I think, technically was over by the end of that first season. He's all in it, balls to the walls. Let's do this rebellion thing by the end of the first season. I think the rest of Andor season 1 is through the eyes of Andor, watching how the rebellion becomes the rebellion we know it is in Rogue One.
Well, and I honestly see that as a bit of a negative. I'm going to be honest with you, mainly because it's called Andor. My main
Right.
problem with these 3 episodes is that I already mentioned it, but for the fact that the show is called Andor, you get zero, like you get nothing from Andor that's at all interesting.
I
I
agree.
think now that he's regrouped with Bix and that faction, we're gonna get a lot more Andor. So I'm curious to see where the next 3 episodes are. But I think that for title this Rogue One Part 0.5, like the prelude to Rogue One. Call it
Mhm.
something other than Andor. Call it the makings of the rebellion or something like that, because it
Sure.
is still an amazing story and it is still fantastic, but it's no longer Andor's story, because Andor season 1 is Andor. You're getting Andor's backstory. You're getting Andor joining the rebellion. You're getting Andor.
Right.
This is not Andor. This is a fantastic show, but it's not Andor. It
It's
is the
like,
makings of the rebellion.
and I'm not comparing it to the same thing, because there's a difference between this and something like the Book of Boba Fett. But the difference is Book of Boba Fett genuinely had horrible writing and was stupid, and about halfway through became the Mando season 2.5. But you're kind of seeing similar things here, in a sense of where it's like, okay, this is no longer Andor's sole story where we're following him choosing to join the rebellion. It's now about forming the rebellion itself through the eyes of Andor. And again, that's just a speculation. For all I know, I could be completely off with this, and it could be Andor's story, and we could have an Andor arc. But from how they're
Yeah,
explaining and setting up the story again, and again, it's not bad. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just a way up a path they're taking I did not expect them to take. I figured they would have done
yeah.
something completely different. But I do understand, and I can completely see the justification for, we need to set up Mon Mothra to eventually fully reveal to the Republic that she is now, she's a part of this rebellion, because that's again where we see her in Rogue One. It picks up she is the leader of the rebellion. She's there,
Hmm.
like fighting the good fight,
Fully rebellion.
fully rebellion. We have to get to that point. Obviously, we get to a point to where, for whatever reason, Luthien's no longer a part of this story. More than likely, he's probably going to die. And we have to get to that point. We got to see all that. But I just think that it should be told in a different way than what they're doing. You can tell Mon Mothra's story, but tell it through the eyes of Luthien, like you did in season 1. You can tell the story of Bix, but tell it through the eyes of Cassian Andor. It, like that's who the show is about. It should be about Andor. It shouldn't be about this through
See,
this
I
character.
I I disagree with you just from the sense of I have no problem at all with the way that they're telling the story. My only problem is don't call it Andor. Don't call it Andor season 2. That is literally my only gripe is call it anything other than Andor season 2. And again, we should specify that is just for these 3 episodes. We could easily be proven wrong. We have 3 more
And
batches
again,
of 3 episodes to be
speculation.
released.
We don't even know if it is the first 3 episodes. It could have a whole meaning behind it. It literally is
Yeah.
speculation at this point because we don't know what's going to happen. This is just how we feel right
Yeah.
now in this moment. Again, not bad, not unwatchable, not a backstep in any sense as far as like the quality of the writing, the storylines they're telling for other characters, and the weight and emotion that you feel. It's still mature Star Wars. It's still everything you liked about Andor. It's just different in the sense of the path they chose. I really don't have anything more to say about it other than that. I really liked what they did. I thought it was a great return, a great welcome to form. I just think that as far as a story goes, they are honing in on other things than the main character themselves, like himself, which I don't know if if it's going to play into a factor later or if it doesn't. It just we will see what happens, and that's pretty much where I'm at right now.
I mean, I think yeah, again, I don't disagree with you, but like just talking about some of the, I guess, more specifics on the individual stories because we've kind of just mainly focused on like I feel like we've been very negative on this show. Not like I don't
Sure.
want to get it like I want to focus more on like our thoughts on I guess what we enjoyed about the show now and talk about like what was actually done really well. Which like again, I think that the watching Mon's dynamic with her daughter Lita was
It
very
was very good.
interesting. And you
Very,
have
very
that
good.
line at the end when Mon's about to walk Lita out and she makes the little comment of like, oh, my mom was drunk, and Lita was like, oh, like that sucks, like that's terrible. But then at the end of that like conversation, Lita then tells her mom, I wish you were just drunk, because Mon goes on this whole rant about like we could call this off, like we don't have to do this. And Lita's like, nah, fuck you, like I'm gonna do this, which kind of gives you an idea of who Lita is as a character.
Yeah.
um I think, and I already like touched on it, but like the scene with Bix and the lieutenant is
Oh my
the
god.
darkest scene in
Holy
like
shit.
she literally like says the words, he tried to rape me.
It's one of those things where I actually was watching it happen and I went, this is this Star Wars? Like I genuinely asked the question, is this Star Wars? What the hell am I watching? Like this was like a scene straight from Game of Thrones. That was my
Yeah.
literal thought.
Yeah, like she is
Bix's
beating him with
whole
a hammer, he is bleeding from his skull, and he is trying to rape her. Like she
yeah.
kills him with a hammer.
Bix's whole storyline I thought was very, very interesting just because of how how it was handled and the message they were trying to tell behind it. I just thought it was really nice and it was really well done. I mean, you don't get that from Star Wars, and so I was glad they took the bold choice and the bold step to tell a story like that. I also come on, I love Director Krennic. Who doesn't love Director Krennic? I loved having
Yeah,
him back in episode 1. I liked the whole oh god, what's their names?
the Gorman.
Uh, and
Are you
Shivel.
talking about the planet that they're
No, no, no.
who are you trying to talk about?
Shivel, and who's the guy? It's the girl and the guy. Shivel and who?
No. You're talking about Cyril, who's the guy, and then Dedra, who's
Cyril.
the girl.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
Cyril,
Here's
who's
the
the
thing.
guy, played
I have a
by
hard time remembering her
Kyle
names.
Soller, and then Dedra, who's played by Denise Go.
I have a hard time remembering their name specifically. I just remember them as bad, bad guy, bad girl.
Yeah.
um, but I really find the whole Empire story in this first episode, 3 episode arc, I think is really interesting because we've never really gotten anything like this from the Empire. I think
No.
the closest thing I guess is something that maybe Tarkin would have done, like if you ever had a meeting scene with Tarkin, and that's it, and not even really like that. Like that's that it, like it's just so different. It's a different side of the Empire, and I really appreciate that.
Well, because it's funny because you have the whole scene again with Dedra meeting Cyril's mom, and it's very much trying to humanize them. Like there's an entire half of an episode, practically, or I guess a quarter of an episode just dedicated to Dedra meeting Cyril's mom.
Yeah,
And you might ask yourself, like, why the fuck are we here? But at the same time, like on the first episode, you're seeing Dedra being presented with the moral dilemma of the essentially extermination of Gorman, the entire planet, so that they can mine it for minerals to lead to the infinite
yeah,
power for the Emperor. And
yeah,
you're you're seeing that aspect of her where she's talking and giving the plan in the sense of, oh, just like start the insurgents and have them destroy themselves so that we can come in there afterwards.
sure,
But then you also have like, oh, we're actually trying to humanize her, and we're trying to like, she's not just a villain, she's a person too. Which is, I guess, again, it's an aspect of the Empire that we've never gotten before. Just like how we've gotten a lot of deep dives with characters from the Rebellion, because we mostly follow the Rebellion. So it's interesting to see the day-to-day lives and remember that while these people are evil from the Empire, they're also humans that
right,
meet their in-laws and have these awkward dinner situations.
sure. But all this talk about it is just reminding me the story we could have had with Cassian could have been much better. That's all I'm saying. Like we're talking
Yeah,
about
I
this and
mean,
we're praising this. You know what we're not praising? Cassian's story, because he sits on a planet kidnapped for 3 episodes. You would have
yeah,
thought that, and it's not like, where else he was kidnapped? In the prison with Kino and the,
yeah.
the the
I
other
mean,
prisoners.
I definitely agree. Like, I really think that for a show being titled Cassian, Cassian's story is the weakest. But I think another one that we haven't talked about at all, or not at all, but we've only talked about small aspects, is we had another death. Like Pedro Pascal, Joel was not the only death this week. That was, I don't want to say, Brazo's death was not as big as Joel's death,
It was
obviously,
sad.
but
It was
it was
nowhere
still
near
sad,
as it was
especially
sad. It was
watching
nowhere near
Big's
the same as Bobo.
reaction to Brazo's death.
Yeah, Brazo dying was the I think is the first sign. It's like the calm before the storm. Brazo dying is important because it's reminding us that nobody in this universe is safe, which I think
Yeah.
is something very similar to what Last of Us and Game of Thrones both do. Is nobody's safe. They try to remind you of that constantly, and I think it's smart. I love Brazo's character. I wish he'd obviously still be alive. That being said, if anybody was going to die, I'm glad it's him, because it's proving the idea of, yes, we're willing to kill important characters that you care about, that mean a lot to the story, that mean a lot to our characters. We're not afraid to do it, and it's going to lead to the calm before the storm, because we don't know what's going to happen. Is Mon Mothra's daughter going to die? Is is Luthen going to die? Is Luthen's daughter going to die? There's like all these
I mean
questions that you now have to ask yourself: is who, other than Cassian Andor, and Mon Mothra, because we see them in Rogue One, who is genuinely safe?
I'm gonna call it out here. Bix is going to die.
Oh, Bix is
The
dead.
reason I
Bix is
say that
totally
is
dead.
because Bix is the love interest of Andor in the Andor TV series, and in Rogue One, she's not a love interest anymore. In fact, there's a different love interest for Andor. So that means that Bix is going to die, and it is going to suck. And it's probably going to happen in one of the last 3 episodes.
Bix
And
Bix is
I'm going
definitely
to
dead.
cry.
And that's why I'm saying it is
But
all the calm before the storm. Like
well,
like
and I think
Brazil's death is the calm before the storm.
I really do think, and unfortunately, I do foresee that every of these 3 episode batches is going to be told very similar, where we are focusing on it, admittedly, in my opinion, too many storylines at once. But I do think that Brazo's death gives me hope that from now on, Andor's story is going to be a lot bigger and it is going to be better, because I think that
Yeah.
this is going to be a big turning point because now we no longer we're in, I guess maybe this is something that could be interesting, is what if every 3 episodes, how many storylines do we have right now? 4, right? We had in this 3 episode drop, we had Mon Mothra, we had Andor, we had
Bix
Bix, and we
and
had Dedra.
Sybil. Yeah.
So we have 4 3 episode drops. The big storyline has been consolidated into Andor storyline. We have Andor, Mon Mothra, and Dedra storylines left. What if every one of those 3 episode drops, we consolidate one of those storylines into Andor's story, all for
Probably.
that last 3 episodes to be probably, if I had to assume, Dedra and Andor being Dedra the Empire storyline mixing with Andor's storyline. And
Yeah.
say next episode, we're probably going to get the consolidation of maybe Mon Mothra's story with Andor, or yeah, probably Mon Mothra's story with Andor's. So that way we
Yeah.
have that consolidation of storylines, because
Yeah.
now we don't have to follow the Grain Planet anymore. Andor and Bix have reunited. Next episode, we might get Mon Mothra and Andor coming together and building out more of that rebellion in a, I guess, unified front
They
standpoint.
I don't think Mon Mothra and Cassian are going to come together till after Luthien's dead. Luthien is the contact between the two, and I don't think we're going to see them interact until after Luthien's dead, which will probably be at the end of this next 3 episode arc. I don't foresee Luthien lasting longer than that, because we have to get the story along. Because there's also a whole nother story arc that we have to introduce that technically sets up Rogue One, which is Cassian and K2SO, which we have not seen yet. And that has to happen.
True.
And we have to have enough time with those two meeting. It can't just be like, at the end of the entire show, here's K2SO meeting Cassian. That can't be what it is, because in Rogue One, they have a bond and they have spent all this time with each other. We see that. So we have to be able to see, that in some form during the arcs.
Yeah. I mean, you're probably not wrong, or I guess you're definitely not wrong. We have to have the introduction of K2SO at some point in these episodes, and we don't know when that's going to be. We know it's going to happen, but I guess again, my hope is that what happens is all of these 3 episode arcs is the consolidation of storylines leading to it is just Andor, and again probably Dedra storylines being those opposing forces, because
Mm-hmm.
I think the penultimate battle, I guess, is set up to be the defense of Gorman,
Sure.
because Gorman, for the power source, is what's set up to be the Empire's plan, um
Yeah.
because obviously we know it's not going to be something like the Death Star plans or anything like that, so it has to be something, and
Yeah.
that is set up to be Gorman, and so that would put Dedra's storyline in direct contrast to Andor's storyline, which would lead up, I think, to a really good like penultimate 3 episodes. I just think that I'm hoping that this is the weakest of the 3 episode arcs. And since
It
we've
probably
already
will be.
consolidated one of those storylines down, I have a lot of high hopes for where the rest of these storylines are going to go.
Yeah. No, I'm the same way. Hope hope is the word.
Yeah. You have anything else you want to talk about with Andor?
Not really. I'm very excited for the future of the show. I do think it's a good start. I just think that they definitely need to hone in a bit more on Cassian's story as opposed to everybody else's story.